Hi, Virgo. All right, welcome to this place. If you're new to the garden, thank you so much for joining. I hope you enjoy growing, learning, and growing here. For those of you who have been growing here for a while, I thank you also very deeply. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be able to connect, so thank you. And I hope this reading will be of service. So, we will be talking about the transit of Saturn from 2025 to 2027. We'll be looking at Virgo rising specifically. I know some of you are all on different points in the path, and that's so awesome. We can all learn from each other. But if you're new to astrology and you, for some reason, don't know your ascendant, your rising sign, and you're part of this place, then will send you a snapshot of your chart, which will give a breakdown of all the symbols so you can learn them, as well as your chart broken down in an elemental sense, like, oh, you might have a lot of water or a lot of earth, something to work with, and then the chart itself. And I usually add in a few extra stars, like I like to work with Vesta, which we will be talking about here. She's a star of our dedication and devotion, our spiritual space, things like that. So, but if you happen to have a Virgo moon or Virgo sun, you could also look at this reading in that perspective. But your rising sign will give the clearest indication, okay? Now, Virgo, for you, and oh, side note, we are going to be looking at this from a sidereal perspective because I feel like that's important. Most of us are women here, and even the men that are here are more moon-based, meaning we work more with the intuitive energy of the moon. It's, to me, in case you're wondering, from what I've gathered about it, is tropical or Western astrology is ruled by the sun, right? It's solar. It's right. We changed the calendar, for instance, to be Sunday is the first day, sun. The East uses lunar calendars. The Jewish use lunar calendars. The Muslims use lunar calendars. The Chinese use lunar calendars still to this day, right? Actually, the Jewish folks use both, which I think is interesting. I also am now at this point using both of something. So, but let's go into it. There is a collective reading also. I will link that below. It's highly suggested to look at because it's going to give like an overall energy of the energy of Saturn moving through Pisces, which is a really big deal. It's going to check our, in a collective sense, I'll give you a little tidbit here. This is like a big ego check. It wants to make sure that what we believe is true. The South Node or the K2 will also be entering into Leo this year, which is another like huge ego check. So we might see that in the world also. To me, Virgo doesn't have a lot of ego. If a Virgo does have a lot of ego, it's always very strange to me, and it ends up blocking itself, you know? Not that we're not allowed to have good ego in the sense of, I'm going to make myself look nice today. You know, I'm going to brush my hair. I'm going to be grateful that the gifts that God has given me, I'm going to take advantage of that and actually physically make and do something. That's good ego, right? Being happy for, again, the abilities that you have. Doing something with those talents that's the reason why we have the talent. Now, let's jump in here. So for you, Virgo rising, this transit from May 29th, 2025 until June 2027, Saturn will be in your 7th house of other people. This is any other person. It could be your partner, like your husband and your wife. It could be your clients. It can also be your open enemies is the 7th house. Although with Saturn there, I feel like it blocks it, but sometimes one or a few may pop up, but then they go out. Saturn in the 7th also, for those of you who are single right now or have been single for a while, this can also be where a really beautiful spiritual Pisces relationship can come to you, particularly romantically, as Venus is exalted in Pisces and actually here right now as this commences, which is so trippy that it's all happening on that eclipse, the end of that new moon eclipse, the end of March. So this could be a relationship that's like for the rest of your life. Like you're like, oh my God, you are my person. Even if you've had your person before for whatever reason, it's like you get another soulmate if you want to. But this is a 2-year and 3-month process, so it may take a little while until that happens. I usually find when Saturn transits the 7th house in general, we're going to be taking our all of our relationships with everyone more seriously. We want more responsible people in our life. We want more organized people in our life. We want more reliable people in our life. We want to be able to rely upon them, to trust them, to build with them, right? Saturn's about building. And again, it's enduring. It's something that's, we want this relationship, the relationships with others to be enduring. But also to be practical, right? Even if they are very spiritual, and because love isn't necessarily logical, right? But Saturn is, so it's like, again, these two things can really come together in a beautiful way. Now, for some of you, this may, for the next 2 years, particularly Virgo rising, this can also be if this is your progressed rising. This at times can sort of, because your first house is the house of your high leg or your life source. So with Saturn opposing you, it could be a little bit where you, well, it checks the ego again. It's gonna not exactly make you hide, but it's going to put you in a position where you take yourself very seriously. As much as you want to take other people seriously, it's one of those things where like, well, if I want serious people in my life, if I want dependable people in my life, if I want reliable people in my life, if I want people who are punctual, I need to be punctual. I need to be responsible. I need to be something that people can rely on. So it's that kind of positive ego, okay? Now, from the beginning, this has been happening most of 2025. Until September, Vesta will be in Scorpio. So this is trining this energy. Vesta to me is about dedication and devotion. Saturn is about dedication and devotion. And the collective reading also mentioned this, and again, I can't emphasize enough how important it is, because it's going to give you a deeper, wider like layer of what an understanding, like what we're standing upon in a collective sense. Because again, all of you here work in moon energy, so you tap into the collective, hence you're here, right? But Venus, that reading suggested that we, pardon me, are supposed to use this transit correctly. The lesson is about Venus, not Mercury, which means Venus is about dedication and devotion, just like Vesta, just like Saturn. Mercury, on the other hand, is just about like trying things. Think of the magician in the tarot, right? It's like, all right, I'm going to try. Like, what happens when I mix this and this together? What happens when I hang out with this kind of person? What happens when I work with this person? What happens when I act like this, in this particular way, with this particular person? It's experimenting. Now, that can still happen. But someone's taking things so seriously now. And I mean, to me, you're a very serious sign anyway. But what's wanted here is cooperation, right? Because oppositions actually bring with them the need to cooperate, and the 7th house is all about cooperation. So it's actually really lining up for you. You know, for instance, this could be where, again, someone now is more comfortable or will begin to enter. If you're not here yet, you'll be entering into a stage where you feel, again, like you can trust people. Because another thing to note is, so if we're talking about Saturn, Saturn rules over 2 houses in our map, right? Over Capricorn and Aquarius. He is the king of those kingdoms. So, and now Saturn's entering into Pisces. So for you, Virgo rising, this is your 5th house, 6th house, and 7th house. So all this bigger piece of the pie for you, which I guess is over here, will be highlighted. And what are those about? 5th house is about gambling, risk. Who can I trust? In who I'm creating with, in who I'm dating, in who is my friend, who I'm having sex with, things like that. 6th house is work. It's the work house. Who are you working with? Who works for you? This can be your employees. Do you trust them? Are they reliable? Are they a risk factor, right? 7th house, again, is other people, but it also is very much a work house. Some of you who, and well, let's stick to the point here. I feel like for you, Virgo rising, this actually has a lot more to do with work than it does with other people, although the way that I think it's going to touch in on other people personally is having a little bit to do with the health of your relationships, I guess, overall is the thing. How healthy is this, right? Saturn's all about, he rules over our health. And for the last 2 years, Saturn's been going through your 6th house, which means you probably put in a lot of work, but you probably didn't get much back for it. Or you haven't seen the results of something yet, right? Recently we talked about this, but where you plant the apple tree, right? You plant the seed of an apple tree, it takes usually 3 to 5 years before that tree is going to yield fruit. So for some of you, the work that you've done, if you aren't seeing the results yet, I guess this can work in 2 ways because you're mutable, but if you haven't seen the results yet, the way I'm seeing it first is that the tree is still there, it's growing, it just hasn't made fruit yet. For those of you where you've been putting in a lot of energy and you've been putting a lot of effort and it's not going anywhere and Saturn feels more like a blockage, then this is where one of those things, you don't have to cut the tree down, but you might want to walk away from it. Now, paying attention to your health, also very important. Again, Saturn's going to kind of dim a little bit, especially for those of you, for instance, that are Virgo rising and Virgo sun. Saturn opposing you is going to make your light feel dimmer. It may kind of steal your energy a little bit. So being more understanding to other people and where they're at. Because again, someone could start having some really high standards for other people, but that could potentially, or high expectations and what they're wanting from other people. But this whole situation is about, again, how do we cooperate? So sometimes someone might have to be more understanding, Pisces, right? More understanding, more compassionate, etc. More sympathetic. But if if it's too heavy on one end, then again, we just have to balance. I would also say specifically, I don't feel like this is going to relate to most of you here, but my husband's boss is going through this. Like, if right now, Virgo, you're having like a major, or any Virgo rising Virgo that's having like major health issues, it could be partially because they're not being as understanding, or they're being overly perfectionistic with things. So we got to ease up, right, with that Pisces. So we got to ease up a little bit, but with also keeping our morals high and kicking down the expectations a little bit, again, in ways of that perfection. Okay. Now, what else is happening here? If you run your own business, I see you could still be doing well because Jupiter will be transiting actually this year from May 2025 until May 2026 for the next year. Hold on. Excuse me. Jupiter will be in your 10th house of work, so you actually, which will be trining your 6th house of work. So you could be doing very well with work, but this could also be where some of you, again, you could be working yourself like a dog. And again, if you have been working yourself like a dog, not eating very well, Virgo rules over the digestive system, the intestines. It's about assimilation, right? Assimilating something. If you haven't been putting time, Virgo to me is also prayer, keeping things organized, keeping things it's health oriented either way. I want this to be healthy. I want this to be clean. If it hasn't been that, then Saturn's gonna make you do that. It could even be where, say that is the case, like someone's been working a lot and not taking any time off and not letting themselves, like, again, I'm seeing the word perfectionistic, meticulous, work-oriented. If it's been like that, it may actually be where somebody else in your life that's close to you doesn't feel well, is having an illness or going through a tough time, and you have to help them, which actually may take you away, be like, oh, I'm taking a few days off because I need to go take care of my grandmother. You know, some things like that. Excuse me. This could make you not trust people a little bit. Oops. Hold on, I gotta get my charger. If I can find it. Just a minute, Virgo. I'm not gonna rush it. Saturn in the 7th can definitely make you not trust people. But that's actually, because it's in Pisces, your intuition might be right on. So say your intuition says, I don't know if I can trust that person. There's something about it, like, it's just hard to connect, or every time you try to connect, it's always about them. Again, maybe the ego's really big. I don't know. Maybe they don't walk the talk. Who knows? I heard you. It's not about judgment. It's just like, take some space from, if that happens to come up, take some space from that person. Okay? See how they behave. If this is an employee or something along those lines, it's kind of like, can you trust them to work alone? If you can't, then they're probably a risk factor, and you might have to take a managerial position and fire them. Get a new employee. It's not a big deal. So you might have to do the hard things in that sense. Those of you who have like a regular job, potentially you could have 2 jobs during this transit also, or you decide to yeah, you could have 2 jobs. Oh, now I'm going back in. Some of you who also have, you juggle 2 things at work, Or like you have jobs back to back to back. But remember, give yourself space, okay? Between jobs, between clients, between going to this meeting and that meeting, between this person and that person. You want space and time between. To Pisces, rest and kind of sit with what just happened. Because that quieting is going to actually help you to use your analytical ability to be able to, because it wants you, I guess other people want you to be efficient too. Not that you already aren't. It depends what kind of Virgo you are. I actually met a Virgo recently that said he was really messy and very inefficient. Like he always, all the things were building up. But when I heard that, and I know this person for quite some time through the grapevine, like I could tell, I was just like, right, that's an expression of depression, right? I'm letting the bills pile up. I'm letting all my receipts are unorganized. You know, I'm not filing my W-2s. I'm not, you know, the cleaning my house. I'm letting my nails grow too long. They're all shaggy. You know, it's like hair's greasy. Whatever the thing is. It's like if Virgo to me becomes disorganized, becomes inefficient, they're not taking care of themselves or a situation correctly. And I think that's what Saturn wants you, why Saturn wants you to realize in your 7th house, like, who can I trust? Maybe that's just to express like, hey, I'm feeling kind of depressed right now, or I'm going through something. Maybe it's, I have a lot on my plate. Some of you are very successful, and it's like, I have a lot on my plate, and I need to be able to trust someone. You know, because the perfectionist is going to say, I need to do this all myself. Saturn is saying, in Pisces, again, in the house of other people, is like, I keep hearing it. It's like, who can I trust? Right? And I keep going back to this employee as an example. It's like, because Saturn causes fear, you know, and Pisces causes confusion and gullibleness. So if you're over trusting, it's going to make you more reserved and a little bit mistrusting to something. I heard, just don't take that too far if that's you. Just give space between things. I would also say that if you've been in a relationship, say you've been dating, you could even be married. With Saturn going through the 7th, this could be where your spouse, or the person you're involved with, could be going through a health thing, or they could be going through something difficult. Maybe their job, maybe work for them is slow right now. You as a person could also be of service to them, though. You know, I heard maybe for some of you, you get rid of the shit employee that you can't trust, that you know stealing from you. For instance, stealing time, whatever, toilet paper, doesn't matter. You get rid of that employee, and you actually might be able to help because someone that's really in need. Because Saturn in Pisces is all about that. It's about Saturn is about self-sacrifice, and so is Pisces, which means I'm going to give in and of myself to that which is in need. And for instance, you get rid of the shit employee, you might find someone who really does need you. And for some of you, in a sense of romantically, this is finding someone who needs you too. I want to cry. I just get all warm in my heart. It's like, I need you too. But it's not needy. You know what I mean? It's not codependent. It's understanding that we need one another in our lives. I said the word woodpecker. You know, and we need to be able to trust one another in our lives. At work, in our romance, all of it. Now, there are going to be certain people in your life where it is all of a sudden there's an obstruction. There's something in the way, or something happens, there's a wall, you can't go past it. This could be you making that wall. It could just be what happens between you and certain others. I heard, please trust that. It's like where God does the weeding. You know what I mean? Now, again, you can weed your own garden. Right? We can always do the karma of each house versus the karma of that house happening to us. Right? Maybe for some of you, I would assume a lot of you here, I'm seeing a Virgo energy where like it is very giving. It is very much like, I want to be of service to you. I want to help you. And you've just been giving. Again, I could see that this could cause a health situation, or this could even cause Saturn in Pisces is also depression. It's emotional. Through Pisces lens, it's more of emotional disorders or diseases. Uranus is more mental disorders and diseases. Okay? That's why, like, Pisces and Saturn and Pisces is also addictions, hardcore addictions too. So it could be where some of you might be like, I'm sorry, you came to work drunk again? Like, I can't do this. Now, maybe for some of you, you're like, I'll pay for your rehab if you want to go. But that still doesn't renege on the fact that they shouldn't be working for you. Now, some of you could also be where your partner quits drinking alcohol or quits something like that. You may notice that the others in your life are becoming, I see, stronger in relation to their spiritual practices. That's the way I've been seeing Saturn and Pisces a lot, is Saturn is structure and Pisces is spirituality, right? Sag, for instance, is religion. Pisces is spirituality. But with Saturn and Pisces, it's kind of like where these two are sort of blending, right? Because to me, religion just means, we've talked about it recently, but in the Motivational Mondays, but that where religion has, again, like a structure. Every year, on this month, in this time, for this period of time, this is what we do. This is how we pray. This is what we're praying for, right? It has a consistent, Saturn, it has a consistency to it, it has a regularity to it. It's reliable. You don't got to think about it so much because it's already laid out for you. Now, some of you, it could be where you may actually need to give yourself more time. I don't know if we've said this specifically, but you may need to give yourself more time, particularly if you're in charge of some big things. You know, say before you give a dissertation, or before you go into work for that project, or before you go into that session, you sit down and you really organize, like, okay, who am I working with? What are we trying to achieve? How can I make sure that this, because to me, you're ruled by Mercury. Gemini's in your 10th house of work, which is communication. This is Aquarius in your 6th house this is communication. It's like really stepping into it with a knowing, and again, a structure of how you would like to get it done, but also understanding that, again, who am I cooperating with? Because every person's a little bit different, right? And again, the way they learn or the way they work. And I know this isn't for all of you, but it's that stereotype, I guess, of Virgo, where it's like, my way's the best way. Libra does this too, where it's like, my way's the best way, so I'm going to do it myself. And that's fine and good. If you're totally solo, you working for yourself, you're doing your own thing, yeah, you can do it your own way. But Saturn is wanting you to cooperate, to create with other people. And this actually can create some really ideal situations and connections with other people. Now, I will say that, again, if you work for yourself, if you're considering starting your own business over these next 2 years or so, at least the next year, 2025. I would hold off a little bit because you might be thwarted. You could make a plan, but I think it's more of like, again, asking yourself, like, who really needs me? And let's go back to your abilities, right? Vesta's in your house of abilities right now. She's about dedication and devotion to your abilities. So upping your spiritual game, so to speak, your prayer game, your structure around your spiritual space, that taking care of your emotional, and particularly for you, Virgo, being ruled by Mercury, your mental health, very, 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 very important. I would actually say for most of you, particularly Virgo rising, you're going to be tired. Like say when you go to work, around 4 o'clock, you're going to be like, I'm pretty pooped, depending. Like in the beginning of this transit, you might be able to work till 5 and then you'll feel it. But as this progresses, at 4 o'clock, you're going to be like, I am tired. I'm tired. You know, and maybe that's part of the reason or the how Saturn comes in to protect you in certain ways so that you take some time off or get some downtime. Now, another positive here I see is, as the 7th house is our open enemies and our competitors, this could actually be blocking your competitors, like, or blocking your enemies. It's kind of like, again, I'm seeing that weeding. It's like who you're supposed to be working for and working with will be there. Even without you doing anything, it'll either stay or go, but you actually have a lot of control over the situation. But again, maybe that's why we said, because again, 7th house is business partnerships and professional relationships as well. So, and as this is competitors, it may be one of those things where maybe there's a lot of people in your field. And it could be where other people are trying to block you. And if that's the case, then you want to make sure that you're trusting yourself and who again, you're working with, and how, I say, do you cooperate? Jupiter is squaring Saturn as this happens, and we've been talking about this for a while. Remember, that represents where if a good opportunity comes up, especially in work, because some of you have, like, you already have a job, but you need another job. Or you need to change your schedule. So if an opportunity comes up in work, then you should take it. You should take it. Okay, don't worry and fuss over that too much. It doesn't mean I heard you have to stop doing the things that you love. Because around the time that Saturn steps into Pisces house, Uranus steps into Taurus's house for you, for everybody. This is your 9th house. We'll close like this. Uranus in the 9th house to me is all about learning. Major learning. You could be learning through the internet. It might be this reading right here. You know, you might be taking classes online. You might be, maybe some of you, I don't know, it could be listening to the radio or listening to podcasts. Something that comes through this kind of electrical waves, right? Or like radio waves, that sort of thing. It could also be where someone's picking up very easily. And I see, this is wanting you so much to have faith in your abilities. So some of you may say, I give up. I give up. But I heard, don't burn the bridge. Just keep walking. Because I heard that bridge is still important. That bridge is still important. Okay. We're going to leave that like that. I hope this was helpful. This is going to make you a little nervous, though. Like, as an undercurrent. Like, am I doing things... When Saturn's opposing you, it's like... This happened to me more recently, transitorily. It was like, when that happened to me, I was like, oh my God, am I doing things right? Right? Because it's Saturn. It's like, he's the teacher. He's dad. He's the... I mean, you're on... Let's stick with it. He's a powerful teacher. He's very well respected. He's ancient. And he's all about responsibility. And it may be like, am I doing it right? I don't know what I'm doing. Well, don't forget that you can go to your teacher and ask if you don't understand. You can raise your hand and ask a question if you don't understand the lesson. If you need to take classes on the side, like maybe some of you, let's give this example. It's like, all right, you don't understand what's going on, or you want to make sure that you pass the class and you do a good job. I feel like that's important to you. It may be like, maybe it's not, maybe you raise your hand, you ask the question, but it doesn't quite get there. Then maybe you go up and you talk to the teacher, or you talk to somebody that you trust that would be through the lens of the Saturn, and you're like, hey, you know, I really wasn't grasping like what's happening here, and I really want to do a good job in this class. Like, is there anything you can suggest that can help me to understand more about what's going on? You know, maybe this is just feedback. You know, am I doing a good job? But don't get too hard on yourself in that, because to me that's natural. Okay, we're going to leave it like that. I hope this was helpful. Oh wait, one last thing I totally forgot. I'm sorry. If you happen to have any planets in Pisces, this could also be any of the mutable, so Gemini, Virgo, Sag, but particularly Pisces. As Saturn enters into Pisces, if you have planets there, when Saturn gets close to a planet in ways of transit, it's going to make you stressed in relation to that planet. So say it's Mercury, you're going to be thinking the friggin' worst. This is like when Virgo's so pessimistic, right? Everything's a problem. You hate yourself. Everything you do is wrong. That kind of thing. Even though no one's telling you that, you're just telling yourself that. It could be Venus, like, my partner doesn't love me. Are we going to break up? Like, I'm so ugly. Like, I'm getting old. Like, no one's going to love me. It's like you just get down on yourself. But as Saturn leaves that planet, he will give us a gift. And again, as Saturn is opposing you, Virgo, you're the only one that gets this opposition for this 2 years. It may feel a little bit, especially Virgo rising, it may feel a little bit like a death of the self, like an ego death. You know, it may be a new definition. And it's interesting because we just did a reading about this, but Uranus trine Pluto is actually happening the 16th of May, the 16th of March until the middle of May. And that is all about this redefinition of ourselves. It's looking at like, okay, what is not working? And what can you do constructively, creatively to change that? You know what I mean? And that's why I was saying, like, don't burn the bridge. We don't need to destroy anything to create anything. Even if that means for some of you, again, like not working at this place or getting a second job or something like that, even if you're leaving something to enter into something, it's not meant to be destructive. You know, we don't leave with a big tissy fit. You don't fire the person like an asshole. You're just sitting down and clear and honest, calm, right? This is best for me. Or maybe for some of you, it's just like, I'm going to just try something. Maybe you've never tried something before. If you are married also, I don't know if we finished that. There could be a little bit of troubles between you in some kind of way. It may just be like, I don't feel emotionally connected, or I don't feel spiritually connected, or maybe the partners feel different spiritually. They're kind of like finding their own way. But this is going back into that soulmate energy, right? Relationships aren't all about sex. You have Capricorn in the 5th house of sex. It's like, I feel like Virgo knows that what things are for, right? Sex is for making children, period. That's what that function is for. Bodily function is for. So it may be one of those things where maybe you're celibate, but it could be a really beautiful, like, so if, for instance, if you're married and you don't have a lot of sexual energy there, it could be where people are just finding, again, their own ways spiritually. And that's okay too, right? Maybe you're connecting in new levels that you didn't even know could exist. And that's really beautiful. You know, that may give you a bit of, and there could be financial things too. And maybe you just want to talk about it, right? Saturn in the 7th is having serious conversations about things, serious, mature conversations. And it's no big deal. Just come at them with wisdom and compassion, and you're fine. And don't forget to ask a question if you don't understand what's going on. You know, maybe the questions is, I don't feel grounded right now. I feel confused, right, Pisces? It's like, what do I need to get grounded right now so that I get out of my head and into my body? And I heard, stop being so critical. And find that balance, because you can. You can. Because Saturn is going to make you reflect. He's going to show you a mirror, you know, and so wherever there's stresses or frustrations, that's for good reason. And again, it's like, that's kind of what's wrong. And then, like, what can we do about it? Maybe the situation is you can't do anything about it right now. If you can't, that's okay too. That might just be the lesson of, right, that's Saturn. Sometimes we have to, the responsibility is handling the stress of the situation, handling the situation maturely, right? Okay, I hope this was helpful. Please take care. Feel free to ask any questions or share your thoughts. I appreciate your presence. And again, I hope this was helpful.